Good morning. This is the Williamson County Chamber Public Affairs Roundtable. I'm Dave Crouch, your host, and happy to see everyone with us here this morning. We have an interesting program this morning. I think it's going to be very enlightening for those of us that want to know what's going on in Brentwood. Our guests this morning are Mayor Betsy Crossley, who is currently serving as mayor there, and with her is Kirk Bednar, the city manager, and to help me make sure we cover all the Brentwood issues, we have Brad Dunn, our chamber chairman, this morning with us this morning.
Morning.
Thank you all for being here, and just want to take a moment and get to know you a little bit. First of all, Betsy, tell us a little bit about your term as mayor and how you happen to become a political person in Brentwood.
We moved to Brentwood in 1999, and I had been a teacher for many years in anatomy and physiology and done some medical research. And when I asked Martha Fox over at Brentwood High School if she would mind retiring and let me do her job, she said absolutely not. So I thought, well, now we've got to do something else. So I've always been involved in my community and decided to start just volunteering in the community, doing various things. And after a couple of years, I took a position on the Planning Commission, and was on the Planning Commission for 8 years. And then at the end of that time in 2007, the commission expanded from 5 people to 7 people. And I thought, well, you know, I've really been involved in this, so let me go ahead and run for that and see if I can do that. And I've enjoyed it ever since, so I've been very fortunate.
Right, now that's an interesting parallel that you are an expert in anatomy and physiology, and now you're understanding how government works. So is there any comparison there?
Well, I just dissect things every day and try to get down to the heart of what we need and what we don't need. I'm a detail person, but at the same time, I really enjoy looking at the big pictures and dreaming ahead. So it just sort of fits my personality, I think.
That's great. That's great. Kirk, same question. How did you become a city manager? What was the progression of career thoughts there?
Sure. I have been in local government all my career, last 25 years or so. Started off, got a master's degree from Indiana University in public affairs. I am a Yankee, but I have lived in the South for most of my career. So, but worked for the city of Fort Worth down in Texas for about 6 years, and then moved up here in 1995, worked for the University of Tennessee, doing some consulting work for cities around the state. And then in 2000, Mike Walker was kind enough to hire me as the assistant city manager in Brentwood. So I've been in Brentwood for 13 years, but obviously I've only been the city manager since January after Mike retired, and the city commission was kind enough to appoint me as city manager. So it's local government's always been my career, and just always felt that that's the one level of government you can kind of get something done and see the benefits of what you do every day.
Absolutely. Well, now Mike Walker was a hard act to follow. He, how long did he serve as city manager?
He was city manager almost 23 years. So.
And generally, when you follow someone that's done a pretty decent job, that's the toughest role to step into. But I haven't heard any reverberations from any missteps or anything. So.
Well, the good thing about Brentwood, and a lot of that goes to Mike in his tenure there, is the fact that you know, he left me and left the commission with a very stable environment, very stable staff. So it wasn't like when you came in that you needed to go in and make any dramatic changes. We had to keep the train moving, and just keep things going. So again, my experience there, I think, helps as far as not being a new person coming in this role. And again, the stability of the community, stability of the staff really makes it easy to come in and just, again, keep things going.
Right. Brad, kind of the same question. We haven't had an opportunity on the air to get to know you quite as well, maybe as some people would like to know you. You're a banker with Pinnacle.
Yeah.
Been there for how long?
Been with Pinnacle, I guess, since we started 13 years ago.
Okay, long time.
Yeah.
And in Brentwood that
Yeah.
entire time?
Yes, opened that office
Okay.
back in 2000.
Served as chairman of the Brentwood Chamber. When was this?
Was the chairman of the Brentwood Chamber in 2009.
Okay. And then stepped into the transition role as the chambers were being unified.
Yeah.
And I will sing Brad's praise for shepherding that process in a masterful way. I really understand a little bit about trying to herd cats and combine things, and it's you've done a great job with that, and commend you on that.
Well, thank you.
And now he's served almost a full year as chairman of the new unified Williamson County Chamber. So,
And not just because it's felt longer, but it's actually been, over a year at this point. But
oh, that's true.
not the two that it may feel like sometimes. But yeah, that's right.
So what do you think now after a year and a month almost?
Yeah. Well, I'm pleased, and honored that I was given the opportunity to lead the effort to unify the chambers, and we use that word unification intentionally all throughout the process. It wasn't a merger, it wasn't an acquisition, and now we're talking about it, as its history, as opposed to really happening, because we're now living, in some senses, the future of the chamber.
Right.
So it's been very rewarding and very pleased, and I do look forward to handing the baton over to the next generation of leaders with Judy Hayes taking the helm in January.
That's great. Well, thank you for all you've done there. Moving on to the focus on Brentwood. Betsy, first of all, financials. The city seems to be stable financially. Tell us a little bit about the financial situation in Brentwood and how you see it.
We're doing very well. We had a slowdown, of course, in 2009, but even through that, our employment rate continued to go up. We are fiscally very sound. We have 2 AAA ratings right now, one from Moody's and one from Standard & Poor's, and you can't get much better than that, I don't think, in this day and time. Our budget's about a little over $62 million this year, but with our fund balance, we still managed to have about 91% of what we needed in there beyond the bottom line. And we're able to do some things this year that make Brentwood even a better place to live, including parkland purchases. And we just remain very solid because we're very conservative in the way that we budget. And we make sure that we have something in the rainy day fund left over in the event that we have issues.
Right. Kirk, can you add to that from a manager's perspective?
Well, again, I think the mayor hit on the high points. We are very proud of our AAA rating, as is the county here and the city of Franklin, as they should be. She mentioned $62 million is our total budget. Our general fund budget, which I think most people equate to the day-to-day operations of our city, is about a little under $33 million. And we pride ourselves in our budgeting to be very conservative, which has helped us build the fund balance that the mayor referenced, almost a little under $30 million as the end of June. And from a revenue standpoint, we try to be balanced. And this is, again, a mantra from Mike Walker that will carry forward as long as I'm around, which is to spread not be too dependent on any one source of revenue. We're about a third, and a third in terms of our revenue, with a third coming from local sales tax, another third coming from our local property tax, and then another third coming from a variety of state shared taxes and fines and fees and other things. So we try not to be overly dependent on one source, which is what helped us back when the economy took a turn back in 2008 to help not be as hard hit as maybe some other communities that were solely or more heavily dependent upon the local sales tax when the economy went down. So, again, we're very conservative, and that's bode well for us over the years, and it has allowed us to achieve that AAA rating.
It's certainly not many municipalities that have that, and I think Franklin and Brentwood both should be proud of that. So just means everybody's minding the ship as they should. So.
Well, and let me just add that that's ultimately those decisions are made by the city commission. That's, even though as a staff we prepare the budget, recommend the budget, ultimately it's the city commission that makes those decisions on what to spend money on and maybe what to hold off on. So long term, over the last 20 plus years, you can credit the city commissioners that have been in place for putting the city in the position that it's in.
It's an incredible thing to actually note, too, that in the city of Brentwood, that the tax rate, people complain about paying a lot of taxes, but the tax rate is one of the lowest in the state. And the city itself has not raised taxes in about 23 years, so that's pretty
23.
amazing in this day and time.
Goodness gracious, that's a long time. As a chamber, we're always interested in growth and development, Brett. And I know we've got a lot of questions along that line. Why don't you wade into that subject a little bit, and let's find out a little bit about what's being planned there.
Yeah, I mean, one of the challenges of being sound and things going well is where do you go from there? And I know that Brentwood has done planning in the past. I think when I was rolling into the Leadership Brentwood program back in 2000, the 2020 plan was kind of a hot topic and was used as sort of a guiding document, if not a governing document at times, for how the growth over the last 10 to 12 years has gone. But the city's in the process of updating that. I don't know. Could you give a status report maybe on where the new 2020 plan, if it's got a new name, and what are some changes you've seen, or what are some things that have been affirmed, from the original?
Oh, very, very excited to do that, and I'll encourage the folks in Brentwood to participate in this. We've got some dates coming up where we're going to begin the process. We actually, city started the process a while back, sending out RFPs. We had 7 folks respond. Staff went through and culled it down to three groups of consultants, and the 3 consultants went through a pretty rigorous process. Members of the planning staff, along with Assistant City Manager Jay Evans and Kirk and I, spent weeks going over the credentials, and we finally have come up with a consultant, which is MIG, Moore, Iosifano, and Goldsman, to be our consultant on this. And we're going to be starting off with our first public meetings coming up in November 12th and November 14th. So November 12th will be 6 o'clock at the library, and November 14th will be 6 o'clock at Brentwood United Methodist Church. We're trying to give folks a couple of times for the same presentation. If you can't make it on Tuesday, please try to come Thursday. And that's just a general session to open it up and begin talking about issues that affect the city of Brentwood and growth. How do we go from here? What do we have that's fantastic? What do we have that we'd like to see change? Just a general discussion. And there'll be good opportunities for feedback from citizens in many different ways. Particularly at that meeting, there'll be a chance for questions and answers. Also, questions for the whole crowd with polling from basically using clickers, where there might be a presentation in PowerPoint with 6 or 7 questions where you could ask the crowd a question, and the polling would take place immediately so that folks could see what is the whole group thinking at that time. And it might surprise some folks exactly what they're thinking about growth and development in the city. So just going to be an interesting beginning for us, again, November 12th and November 14th. And then on the 21st, there'll be another session that will be held at the library that will specifically deal with land use issues. We have a C4 moratorium on right now, and there's been a lot of discussion about development in our town center. Been a lot of discussion about senior housing and how are we going to serve seniors in the future. So land use issues are very, very important for our future, and that particular session is going to just deal with land use issues on the 21st.
So what do you anticipate coming out of the 2020 process? You've talked a lot about the process, but what are you expecting to see when it's all said and done?
Well, like Brad was saying, in 1999, that was when the first 2020 plan was initiated. It was developed. And I think in the meantime, things have changed a good bit with the dynamics of the city and growth around us. And so it's a good time for us to just take another look. It's an update of the 2020 plan. We really won't be talking about a 2040 plan until about 2017. So this is sort of the last edge of how are we moving forward? How have things changed? Are we moving with the change? What is it that we value in our community? And how can we continue that vision of balanced growth at the same time moving ahead with all the challenges that we have, given everything moving so quickly through the city of Brentwood, and of course the challenges of keeping the budget like it should be. So.
Right. Kirk, you...
Yeah, I think the mayor hit the high points. I think the key we want to make sure everyone understands is that we hope that this process, and it'll take probably close to a year or so before we're finally done with it all, but our goal in this process is to probably make this as much public and citizen engagement as we've ever had in the city of Brentwood. Now, those of you, anybody who was involved back in 1999 when the original 2020 was done knows that there was a tremendous amount of committee meetings and citizen involvement at that point in time. But from an update standpoint, we did one in 2006 that had a citizen survey, and that was really about it. So this time, we really are looking to reach out to the community and hope to have excellent attendance at the public meetings that the mayor mentioned. But there'll be a series of 10 to 12 public meetings over the course of this project. There'll be obviously survey opportunities that every household in Brentwood will get a couple surveys. Every business will get a survey. We hope to have some online comment and input opportunities. So we're really looking for this to be very much a citizen-driven plan and not a city internal type driven plan. And the goal really is at the end of the process that we'll have an updated document, updated goals, updated vision that will be a guide for the city going forward. Because again, there's been a lot of change in Brentwood since 1999, both in terms of population, demographics, land use issues. So it'll be a goal, but I do expect that we'll have some actual code changes that will come out of this process related to C4 town center zoning and hopefully senior housing, some provisions in the code to maybe provide some better incentives and design for those types of things.
Just a little more about the process itself. When you have a community with multiple constituencies and voices that are being heard, listened to, and trying to be compiled into a single plan, where do some of those decisions, some of those key decisions, where will they fall? Will it fall to the professional staff or the commission, the planning commission? How do you, when you take all that raw data from the community, some of which maybe want very conflicting things, what happens next, kind of when the plan starts getting put together?
Well, we're fortunate in the way that this plan is designed that, first of all, you have input from the public as a whole, and I will tell you that MIG is working in conjunction with a group called ETC, and ETC will be taking the data and analyzing the data while we will be pinpointing which households get the surveys and that sort of thing to make sure that everybody gets one. The actual analysis of the data will be done by ETC, which will help us have an unbiased look at that. But what they'll take care of is they'll look at the surveys from citizens, the surveys from business. On top of that, MIG will work with small stakeholder groups and have discussions with them at different times and import that data as well. So we've got a large number of varied groups that we're trying to get together so that they can interview those and have the input there. You put everything together, and of course the process will be finally, there'll be some back and forth between citizens after we gather the data as to what they think about the data, and certainly the Planning Commission and the City Commission will have a discussion in that as well, and staff. And with all those folks being able to come together, I think we'll have a pretty good product by the end.
Okay, good.
Good. It's a fascinating process, and I'm sure we'll produce some interesting results and some insights that you maybe had no idea were out there, but that's great. Talking more about the development that's on the drawing boards or underway in Brentwood, and I'm just looking down a bullet point of some of the projects going on. Kirk, why don't you take the lead on this? The Tractor Supply headquarters is certainly a big project, and I know there was a lot of conversation about that, pro and con, I think, before it came out of the ground. How is that developing, and how's it looking?
Sure. For those of you who, it's on Virginia Way, kind of the southwest corner of what most folks would consider the Maryland Farms area. So not a lot of folks come Virginia Way, and some folks may not have realized that is well underway. Both buildings are up. The parking garage is on its way up. I think they're looking for a second half of the year, kind of summer, early fall opening of 2014 for their headquarters. It's a very attractive building. And they're doing it in a very first-class way, and we're very excited for them to stay in Brentwood as a corporate headquarters. With that, though, what came, and you mentioned the controversy a little bit back in 2007 when the rezoning for that land actually took place, and then the economy hit and really nothing happened for a while. But part of that project, excuse me, included a new park for the city of Brentwood that opened back in December or first part of this year. Margaret Hayes Powell Park, which is a neat little, it's a very passive park, hiking trails type, walking trails with a couple ponds in there. So it's a very neat little addition to the northern Brentwood area. It serves both the office park and a lot of the lunchtime walkers and the YMCA folks that run there, but also the Meadow Lake neighborhood and the surrounding neighborhoods, and it's really been a nice addition. That's, again, somewhat hidden from most folks in Brentwood.
As I mentioned earlier, I took a ride around Brentwood yesterday just to make sure that I kind of knew what was going on up there. Afraid I might have missed something. And the one thing that struck me was how the walking trails are everywhere you go. How many miles of walking trails are there, and how connected are they as far as getting from one
Sure.
area of Brentwood to another?
If you count the trails kind of within the parks, not just the kind of from park to park, but we're somewhere close to 20 miles of trails. We're obviously much more developed trail-wise on the east side of Brentwood because, you know, that is what's been developed more recently. And obviously the trail issue was more on our minds as we went, so we've been able to try to better connect the east side of it. But we're at the point now really, and Franklin is similar in this too, really any road project we do, any new road project we do, we incorporate some type of bike and pedestrian facility. You see that out Concord Road, and you will see that as Concord Road is extended here, as that project gets underway. We'll have a trail that goes all the way to Nolensville Road and is designed in a way to eventually connect into the Metro Nashville Mill Creek Trail system. So not only within Brentwood are we looking to extend trails, but also looking at those opportunities to connect to our adjoining neighbors. Eventually, we'll connect to the Franklin system when McEwen Drive is extended out to Wilson Pike. So, you know, it's something we pride in. I think it's something our community and our residents really consider a major quality of life issue. You can go right now from Ravenwood High School to the library without ever getting on a street. Eventually, to the west is where we're, you know, retrofitting trails in existing areas is not as easy to do because you're obviously having much more impact on yards and existing neighborhoods. But if and when the Turner property ever develops in the future, you know, the plan is to extend that network under 65 and across the Turner property to Murray Lane and Franklin Road, and then eventually incorporate the western part into the full trail system.
Interesting. Reminds me of a friend I used to know in the Washington, D.C. area that used to rollerblade to work because he could connect all the way from home to where he actually worked. I don't know if you'll have anybody doing that.
Well, and that's, you know, the one unfortunate thing, and obviously when you talk about Brentwood, you can't talk without mentioning traffic. But we don't have those facilities in the Maryland Farms in the northern, you know, the northern part of town, and that's really, I think, in hindsight, if we could go back and do something 30 years ago, we try to facilitate that better. But that is a challenge because we'd like to make it easier for people to walk to work or bike to work. You know, you do see some folks bike to work now on Franklin Road, and you kind of question their sanity a little bit in terms of safety. But so, you know, in an ideal world, we'd figure out a way to try to make that more conducive, and I'm not sure we can do that, at least in the short term. But right now, our trail system is primarily recreational, although you know, it does serve some trips in terms of neighborhoods to the library and the Y and those types of things. But long-term, we'd like to be able to make it more of an opportunity for people to commute to work.
Right. Brad?
Yeah, staying on kind of quality of life in parks, I know there's some plans just across from Ravenwood High School. Just a quick update maybe on Smith Park and where that stands and some things that are coming in the near future.
Sure, and that's our very exciting project that we have going on, and any of you who are on the southeast side of town have probably seen what's happening there. But Smith Park was a piece of property that the city acquired back in 2010, 320 acres from the Smith family. It includes the Ravenswood Historic Mansion built back in 1825. We are right now in phase 1 development of that park, which includes, it's a great piece of property if it wasn't for a railroad track that ran across the front of it, to be honest with you. So phase 1 of that project is really building the access road into the park, which includes a bridge over the CSX railroad, and extending utilities into there and some preliminary road network inside. It includes renovation of the home, which will be done really in really 2 weeks. The renovation of the home will be done. And then the majority of the property is wooded hillsides. So when we open the park, hopefully late spring of next year, we'll have somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 7 miles of hiking trails up in the hills and in the woods. And again, the house will be renovated and available for rent for weddings and events like that. Long term, the plan includes some athletic fields out there. And then just 2 weeks ago, the City Commission voted to spend a little under $3 million to acquire an additional 80 acres at the backside of that park to make it a full 400-acre park, which we learned is over half the size of Central Park in New York when you think about it. So long term, it's development-wise, it's probably an 8 to 10-year phased-in development project. But the first phase will open, as I said, next spring, and we're really excited about that. It's going to be a very attractive park, but it's also going to be a piece of green space that, as this county builds out, will be unique, I think, in what anywhere else in the county.
You look at the total number of acres that we'll now have in the city of Brentwood for parkland, we're working right at 998 acres. So if we could do 2 more acres, we'd be at 1,000 acres. I think that's pretty impressive for a city that's 41 square miles. So,
Need to find another surveyor that can
there we
figure
go.
that out. Yeah.
Move that pen just a little, huh? Yeah.
Right. The fascinating story on the Smith Park and how that came about, and certainly a beautiful piece of property, and looking forward to seeing how that develops. Going back to the growth and development just a moment, though, we haven't talked about the Synergy Business Park. I think it's now called the City Park, the Mallory Park, I don't know whether you call it the Tennessee Baptist Convention property or how it's referred to now, but got some pretty significant pieces of property there in Brentwood that are being discussed or under development. Talk a little bit about those and how they are going to play into the future.
Sure, and I'll talk some, and then the mayor can jump in. But you mentioned Synergy Business Park, and it's gone by any number of names, I think, over its history. But the business park there on Franklin Road, just a little south of Maryland Way, the Boyle investment folks have bought that a year or so ago, and really have great plans for that. We're really excited. What they've got approved so far, again, they have renamed it City Park Brentwood. And it includes the Moreland Mansion, another historic home in Brentwood, and they have committed to preserving that home as part of their development plan. But it includes a new hotel that will kind of wrap around the historic home and be architecturally designed in a way to complement the home. I think it's a 125-room Hilton Garden Inn that has been approved. And then, for those familiar with it, Executive Center Drive is a main road coming off Franklin Road into that kind of leads to the house. And what they've got approval for there is to put some retail buildings lining that street, kind of like a Main Street type feel. All told, I think about 60,000 square feet of retail along there. And they've got approval to do that. So that should be kicking off here sometime this fall, and I think they're looking for maybe a late 2014 opening. But we're really excited about that. Obviously, retail brings in sales tax. But not just for the tax standpoint, just for what that'll do to that business park and kind of re-energize that whole area. It will be an easy place for people to walk out of their office building and walk to lunch, very much a walkable type area. So it's developed under our existing zoning, so it's not a town center type zoning arrangement, but it will have very much a town center feel to it down that main street.
Really good.
You mentioned Mallory Park also. Mallory Park is another one of those developments that's kind of hidden from a lot of folks.
Right.
It's the Mallory Lane extension back kind of up behind Best Buy there. And there's a lot going on back there. We've got 3 new car dealerships in the works. The Porsche dealership, I believe, is open. The Audi dealership is close, and the Mini Cooper is a little bit farther behind that. But that was another one of those creative development plans that the developer worked well with the city and the surrounding neighborhood to kind of craft a plan that allowed the developer to get some additional commercial zone land, which is rare in Brentwood, of course. In return for that, the city's getting 28 acres or so for a future park that will help buffer the neighborhoods from that development. So we're really excited about that. Park-wise, we're probably a year or so away from planning that park. But the development is exciting. There's a lot going on down there.
The Audi dealership supposedly is on path to open up in November, so it really is going to be pretty close as far as Mallory's concerned. In addition to the historic renovation of Moreland, and in addition of the Hilton Garden Inn, beside that, Boyle's also included something very interesting, I think, for sort of a city park, and that is that they've got a sort of a green stage directly there on Centerview Drive, on Executive Park Drive, so that there can be small performances of music or drama or whatever. So it really will create sort of a festival center right there in front of the hotel as well. So it'd be interesting to see what kind of activities downtown would have now.
Right. Right.
One thing, one of the kind of prominent and premier corners in Brentwood is Maryland Way and Franklin Road, and some people would say not all growth is good growth, and we might all agree to that. But just kind of as we sit here in October, looking back over the last year or so, kind of going to ask you a post-mortem question about the Streets of Brentwood project, just kind of what we learned from that, and kind of where you all see that property today, and some activity going on up there.
Well,
We both looked at each other and lost that one.
I had to ask that question, you know that.
a lot of months of discussion there, appropriate initials sometimes for Streets of Brentwood, but I don't think they're going to bring it back as Streets of Brentwood this time around. It will be, as I understand it, something less that probably will not include residential, but we don't have plans before, so we don't know for sure one way or the other on that. The Streets of Brentwood was an interesting project. It started off at 975,000 square feet, which was a huge change in what has normally been proposed in the downtown area. The actual scope of that project included retail, office, and residential. And as discussions continued, we found that there were some things about the plan that were troubling to many neighbors, and part of that was that the complex was so close to existing residential, and in our zoning, we had not realized that our residential buffer there was so small, so we had to do some changing along the way. The size of the project was decreased some as discussions continued, but throughout the discussions, and it went on for months, didn't seem to be able to find a way for the developers to feel comfortable with moving forward, so they withdrew in February. And so now we have an opportunity again to consider this, now with this being totally unified under H.G. Hill. It was a combination of GBT and H.G. Hill. Now it's all under H.G. Hill. I believe there are 37 total acres if you include the existing H.G. Hill complex. So perhaps some interesting plans coming forward when we finally see them. Looking forward to that.
Good.
Yeah, let me just say that well, two things. I think it is very important to the city, and we're very excited about H.G. Hill acquiring the Baptist property, because it's vitally important to us that corner, those two pieces of property, be developed in a coordinated fashion. One of the features of the Streets of Brentwood plan would have been a road that connected East Park Drive to Chadwick that would have allowed for some traffic to be diverted out of that major intersection at Franklin Road and Maryland Way. So we do think that development of that corner provides the potential for some traffic relief in that way. Obviously, it's going to generate some traffic, and that's part of the plan review process. As far as the whole Streets of Brentwood process goes, people came on down on different sides of that. I think ultimately, though, what happened out of that was a community discussion that's going to lead to some good input and hopefully some good decisions out of our 2020 plan. When we first developed the town center zoning and the town center concept back in 2004, the city committed to providing some infrastructure and providing guidelines for development and letting the private sector do its thing. And then we had some economic issues, and you've got some basic property issues in the original town center that make it difficult. So we made some changes to that opened, freed up some opportunity for development, and that's what you had from when the streets of Brentwood came in. The plan they proposed was in complete compliance with what our existing regulations were. The end result of that, though, again, was a discussion about what it is we really want out of town center. And that's a valid discussion for our community to have. So I think going forward, we'll better define that out of this 2020 process and be able to, hopefully, when we're done with that, have some standards that the community as a whole has agreed to and bought into, and then provide some certainty going forward.
From a staff perspective, I'm not going to ask the mayor this question because it's a very political question, but you've got a little bit of a step away from the political world, Kirk, but from a staff perspective, what would you like to see on that corner? And I know that's a loaded question, but
Yeah, I
if
guess
you're
that-
looking at it strictly from a staff position, what's good for Brentwood?
Well, I think it's ideally, it's got to be some type of a mixed use in terms of probably office and retail. I agree with the mayor. I don't know that you'll see a residential component in there. And obviously, there's a residential component isn't allowed in there under the current zoning. So I think it'll be an office and a retail, and partly because to help balance some of the traffic flow. As we talked about during the Streets of Brentwood project. If that were all developed as all office, where you had that rush, that coordinated traffic rush in the morning and the evening, the traffic problems would have been much worse than what was being proposed. So I expect it'll be a combination of some office buildings and retail. I do expect that you'll see a road connection there, like was proposed in the original Streets of Brentwood, and I would expect that probably that will be the point where the retail is, similar to what's being done in Synergy, where you'll have kind of a, I hate to call it a main street, but a main road that has the retail up close on it.
Right.
Under the existing zoning, though, the way it'll look on Franklin Road and Murray Lane will be a little different because of our setback requirements, that you won't be building up to the road under the existing zoning. But again, it'll be hopefully some type of combination of office and retail. Again, selfishly, from a staff standpoint, it's retail that generates more revenue. And again, hopefully it's something that will complement what's going on at City Park Brentwood and what's existing in the Maryland Farms area, and provide an opportunity for office workers to maybe walk to lunch and that type of stuff.
Right.
But I think that's what you'll see. I don't think all office is really what we need. I don't think all retail is what we need, but some combination of that. And what that split is, that's up for the developer to decide.
Brad, from the business community's perspective, same question. What do you think the business community would like to see there?
You know, I think the streets project was very interesting to the business community. And I think the you know, as a business community member, as a chamber, you know, we like to see good, smart growth. We like the players that were in that project. Obviously, they are invested in this community, and I think brought a plan that, like I said, that caught the attention of a lot of folks. Some really liked it and some really didn't, obviously, and in the end, we're going to see something different. You know, the residential component may have been the flashpoint for that, and you know, I think that's not the first time that's happened in Brentwood, maybe in other parts of the county, and that's pretty common, I think, in development in general. But you know, personally, I think that you know, that could be could have been a very viable and nice balance. But you know, I mean, I think the will of the people decide the outcome. So you know, but we look forward to what's coming next.
Right.
With the recent acquisition there of the corner. I think that does give some nice opportunities, and you know, maybe we'll see some similar elements, but probably some modifications that'll help this thing move forward.
Well, I've learned something this morning, and I didn't realize the connection from Maryland Way would come all the way down to Chadwick Drive. That makes a lot of sense and answers a question that I've always had about traffic and how that would work in that area, but I can see how that could help. And
I'd like to make one more comment too,
Go
and
ahead.
that is, we still have 17 plus acres or so. I'm not sure what the Old Town Center acreage is.
Yeah, I don't
Well, I say Old Town Center, the original town center in Brentwood. it's an interesting group of properties, and that there are multiple property owners in that group. And our concern, or at least I'll speak for me, since I'm one of 7 on the commission. My concern has been how can you unify many owners to get a unified property up there to have a decent development. And it might include some component of residential up there with condos. But the question is, how do you get that piece of property available where you can actually build some type of development? You could build a little bank or a little building, but really what I would like to see is somehow folks in the town center, the original town center, which is up on the corner of basically Old Hickory, Franklin Road, and Church Street, around in there, like to see those folks come together and really recognize that that could be a fantastic area for us to have sort of the final part of our downtown. And what's been so difficult is just to get folks to bring these multiple properties together and even consider talking about that sort of thing. So hopefully maybe the 2020 plan, when we begin talking about what the future of our downtown looks like, if we've got City Park already jumping around here with Boyle, which looks fantastic, if we're talking about the possibilities of H.G. Hill doing additional development across the street from that, then the last piece of the puzzle of what is downtown Brentwood is going to be up in that corner with the multiple properties. And we need to be talking about that as well, just at least dreaming for the future, so.
Right.
I, for one, and Larry Kane would agree, it's a great place for a little bank up there. And it seems it's a great place for 2, but it's time to slam the door and let's let that be it, you know.
Good point, good point.
And we appreciate you.
Yeah.
That discussion is a good segue into the road and street plans for Brentwood, which I think all of us that drive through Brentwood occasionally are interested in. And again, as I drove through Brentwood yesterday, one of the things that struck me is how long it's taken to get Concord Road widened. Give us a little bit of the background and the future there, and how that's going to play out.
Sure. As I mentioned, I first started with the city of Brentwood in fall of 2000, and my first project was the corridor study for the widening of Concord Road. So that's 13 years. You can kind of tell what's happened there. But that project, we did an earlier phase of that from Edmondson Pike to Sunset Road back in 2010. So the next phase takes that widening from Sunset Road all the way to Nolensville Road, which is in that little last segment there is in Metro Nashville. But we had an arrangement with TDOT like we do on several of our projects where the city funded the design of that widening and we funded the acquisition of right-of-way for that project. And those two together to the tune of almost $6 million of city funds in those 2 phases of that. But the other phase, construction has been awarded and will really begin literally this week or next in terms of seeing dirt being turned out there. Mm-hmm. And that is a 2-mile plus stretch of road. Mm-hmm. Anybody who drives that knows how narrow that is, how windy that can be. So you can imagine the complexity of the construction project, let alone the benefits of that. It's about a 2.5-year project. Part of that length is related to our friend the Nashville crayfish, which I won't go into the details of that, but it has been a nemesis. Well, I hate to say nemesis. That sounds like I'm anti-crayfish.
They were fun to catch when I was a little boy, you know.
It makes it a challenge in doing some of our road work in the east part of Brentwood, and we've had it on some other projects too. So, but that's, again, it's going to be, I can't understate the problems it's going to create for commuters out there. It's going to be difficult. They will keep 2 lanes of traffic open at all times. I mean, there may be an occasional 1 lane and a flagger during the day or whatever, but it's just going to be a challenge for the next 2.5 years. It's something that has to be done. There's no way around it. And it's a significant project for the state. Again, the state is contracting. The state is doing the construction work on that one. It's not a city project. But it will look similar to what you see there from Edmondson to Sunset, 3 lanes with a bike path along the south side of the road, again, all the way out to Nolensville Road.
What about from Wilson Pike to Edmondson? Is that the way it's going to be from?
Well, from Wilson Pike to Edmondson, you know, there's different segments of that have been improved over the past. Those have mainly been city projects. We have one final project there that kind of takes it from where the 5-lane section just east of Wilson Pike now narrows down across the front of Brad's neighborhood there, Indian Point. We're going to widen that essentially from Jones Parkway to Arrowhead. Thank you, Mayor. All my roads get a little confusing there. And that's that last little section for anybody who drives that, where you got that little part where there's a series of trees that you could reach out and touch from your window if you drive by. So we'll widen that to 3 lanes again, and there'll be bike and pedestrian facilities. And that will essentially be it. The little sections farther east of there have already been improved. You know, the issue with Concord, and I think it'll come up in our 2020 plan is, and we're getting those questions even now as the state project gets going, and folks who maybe are newer into town, and you know, the question is, why isn't Concord Road just going to be 5 lanes all the way to Nolensville Road? The state made us buy right-of-way to allow it to be widened to 5 lanes at some point in the future. Long ago, the leadership in the community of Brentwood made a decision that if it were ever going to be 5 lanes, then the state was going to be the one pushing that, not the city. And I think, you know, the vision was, do you want East Brentwood to have the equivalent of Old Hickory Boulevard through it? And the decision was made that we did not want that. Now, you know, you make that decision, and one of the byproducts of that, of course, is a traffic issue. So the widening will create a better flow, a safer flow, but it won't be maximum capacity. And you gotta be careful what you say here, but the reality is, if we widened it to 5 lanes, we would destroy the character of East Brentwood, and within 2 years, you'd have similar traffic problems than you do now, because adding asphalt just attracts more cars, and it only ends up with the traffic problem just being pushed out a few more years. So we've made that decision. In hindsight, or you know, in the future, that may change, but ultimately it's a state route, and I think the state will have to be the one to make that decision if they're going to go in and buy up houses and destroy the front of several subdivisions to make that 5 lanes in the future if they ever want to do that.
Mayor, are the citizens getting what they want there?
You know, I was just looking at Ken Moore and those of us who sit on the Metropolitan Planning Organization, and we talk about this, what's going to happen up to 2035. In Williamson County, we'll have basically 1/3 of a million people just in Williamson County. Metro Nashville is going to go to over 2 million folks. And how do you deal with that? You don't put down more asphalt. You've got to come up with another plan. So even now, you know, 20 years prior to that peak, we're trying to look at alternative ways for transit to occur in the area. And maybe it'll have to be a combination of bus rapid transit and some other things, but just widening the road isn't going to cure the issue. Right. And for Brentwood, you know, our name used to be Midway back in the day, and so truly we are midway between so many things, not just Franklin and Nashville, but you're talking Murray County and Rutherford, all coming through to go back and forth to Davidson and to Williamson. So it's much more of a challenge as we continue to grow as an area, and we have to recognize that there's just a real need for area cooperation between all the entities, all 6 counties in the metro areas.
Right. Brad, you got to follow on to that.
Just was going to see if we have enough time to sort of maybe speak to regionalism. I mean, that's kind of what we're starting to talk about. You've got the connectivity. I do live on Concord Road.
I want you to move on into that, but if there are anyone in the audience that would like to add a question to the mix this morning, if you would go ahead and step forward. We'd like to hear from some of our friends in the audience, and while Brad is following on with that, step on up,
yeah,
and then we'll get right to you.
Yeah, I mean, no county is an island. You know, the traffic patterns aren't just those of Williamson County residents. So you mentioned the Metropolitan Planning Organization. Maybe speak to that a little bit before Mike comes with a question.
Well, the Metropolitan Planning Organization is a group of, right now, 6 counties, maybe adding more than that meet at least once a month and coordinate federal projects and also look at state projects that road projects throughout the entire area and try to see how we can make transit the best it can possibly be. And so Michael Skipper is the director of the MPO, and we have a technical staff that works. Mike Harris is our technical person that comes in and kind of hashes things out later on and makes it ready for the mayors to make the decision. But plenty of subcommittees on that group that are continuing to work, and it's just a very, very important part of planning for the whole area and our futures.
Yeah.
Tell us who you are and ask our guests what's on your mind this morning.
All right. My name is Mike Humphreys. I'm an independent business consultant here in the Brentwood area. And my question, well, first, before the question, my compliments to the city staff and the commission for their conservative fiscal responsibility that they've carried out over the years. I'm pleased that we're in such good financial position. I would like to dig a little deeper, though, and ask the following question. As our workforce matures, as the city grows in staff size, are we fully funded for retirement obligations that the city has created for itself? Thank you.
Sure. Short answer to that is yes. We are, the city, we're part of the state retirement system, Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System. The city of Franklin has its own system. They're a little different, but we are part of the state system. So we have no choice but to fully fund our annual contribution as determined by the state and their actuaries. So we are fully funded in that. We've taken some steps in the last few years to try to lessen that liability going forward. And prior to 2010, any new employee with the city did not contribute to that fund. Starting in January 1 of 2010, all new employees do contribute 5% to that. So that lessens a little bit our long-term obligations there. But in addition to retirement, and those of you who follow some of the things going on in other states and municipalities across the country, the other issue out there that a lot of folks are getting hit with is not just the retirement pension, but any retirement related benefits that you may have promised your retirees, primarily health insurance. And we do have retiree health insurance. You know, we're a young community. We've only been incorporated since 1969. We never really had a huge number of employees until early in the 90s. So right now, we only have a handful of retirees that are drawn either the state pension or on our benefits. But we have, back in 2004, began setting aside money for the post-employment benefits. We're the first city in the state to create a trust to fully fund that in accordance with the financial accounting standards that we have to comply with. So we contribute upwards of $600,000 a year into a trust, and that number is actuarially determined to fund our future liability, both for the retirement benefits. Same thing again, when we first acknowledged that obligation long-term, we made adjustments to our retiree benefit plans to reduce the long-term cost of those in terms of for new employees hired after 2005. The benefit plan is dramatically different than those prior to that date. So we are fully funding them. At the same point in time, we're trying to adjust those benefit plans to still make them fair for our employees who've given us long years of service, but also to try to limit that long-term liability.
And additionally, as far as, talking about employees, per capita, the number of employees that we have working right now actually less than the per capita back in 1991. So we do this in a very, very fiscally managed way, and our employees just are fantastic. They do a lot more for a lot less.
Good question. Anyone else brave enough to step forward? Brad and I've got a whole list of questions. We can continue, but just want to make sure that our guests have an opportunity. Brad, anything else that, from a political or chamber standpoint, that you think the city of Brentwood is needs to talk about or has talked about that we've missed?
Maybe just a quick statement of the just appreciation for the working relationship we've had in the city of Brentwood with the Chamber of Commerce. I think we've got a lot of opportunities ahead of us, and we want to be as a chamber, a very vocal and important part of the conversation. And I think our unification in the last year is going to create some ways to kind of open those lines of communication even better, so that we can enjoy the quality of life in Brentwood, but also in Williamson County and even in the region that we would all hope for.
Right.
Let me add on to what Brad just said. I think, the unification, I think, has turned out to be very positive from our perspective. And I think coupled with that is the consolidation of the economic development arm of what was in the county into the chamber.
Right.
Matt Largent and Jeremiah and the folks there. We have a good working relationship with that. And Jeremiah and I have been out and about meeting folks and meeting with some of the CEOs in Brentwood, just to let them know that we do value them, and that if there's anything we can do for them, we certainly want to be able to do it. Historically, the city of Brentwood has never really had to worry a whole lot about economic development. We probably turned away more projects than a lot of folks wish they could ever have the opportunity to get. But I think going into the future, that's not going to be the case. Maryland Farms is nearly built out, so now the issue is how do we maintain that office park as a highly desirable place for corporate-type headquarters, keep the folks we've got and still be able to attract new ones coming in. So we're going to have to be more involved in terms of economic development and corporate relations, and certainly expect that to be a partnership with the chamber.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I was looking at the last 10 years, too. When you look at our income and revenues from business, it's doubled in the last 10 years, which means we have a lot more business. And so it wasn't that the business community wasn't important to begin with, but it's become ever much more important in discussions and partnerships with what's going on in the city.
Yep.
Right. Just time for one more brief discussion, but politics. When are the commissioners up again for, what's the progression on that cycle for new commissioners and so forth?
There's 7 commissioners, and the elections are scattered. They're 3 and then 4. So the next time we have an election will be 2015. There'll be 4 commissioners up for re-election at that point. And interestingly, something that a lot of people don't know about the city of Brentwood is that with the city manager form of government, 7 commissioners have equal votes. The mayor isn't like Ken with being a strong mayor. The mayor is not elected by the people. The mayor is elected by peers on the 7 people on that commission. So equally, we all have the same clout, so to speak, politically, as where our vote goes. But 2015 will be the next election, and we'll see who decides to run again or run in addition to
Now, are you up for election?
I will be one of the 4, yes.
And do you intend to run again?
I'll let you know in 2015.
Thought we might get a political
I'm having
announcement
way
here
too
this
much
morning.
fun right now.
All that extra pay as mayor is really kind of
Yeah,
big deal, huh?
my $50 a month.
I would love to spend a few minutes talking about whether the city manager and commission form of government is, what the pros and cons are there, but we'll save that for the next one. And just want to say thanks to Mayor Crossley for being here. Kirk, we appreciate the command of detail that you had with us this morning, and have certainly enjoyed getting a little better perspective. I say this over and over, but I enjoy this show because we have time to get a little deeper into some of the issues that are in the media, and kind of understand the politics and the issues that you are all dealing with, and we appreciate that. Brad, I appreciate the help and the additional
Pleasure.
perspective, because I know it helps to have somebody that's actively in the community every day, helping out to show the perspective from the business point of view. Getting a little wordy there, and my apologies for that. But we appreciate everyone being here this morning. We have officially decided to take the rest of the year off. The next fourth Friday, I think, would have been right in the middle of the holidays. It might have been Black Friday, I'm not sure. But we will not be here in November and December, but we will be back the 1st of January the fourth Monday in January with our state legislators. beginning to give us a perspective on what's going on in Nashville and on Capitol Hill, and we look forward to having you all with us. Hope that you will join us then. One more big thank you to Emma for making sure we have coffee here. She's here at 6 o'clock every day we meet, and trying to get that coffee ready, and I couldn't do it without her. And really appreciate Emma and the rest of the chamber staff for making this possible, and look forward to seeing you again next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you.